Hello from the lighthouse. We are continuing with this. This is part three of my reaction to Outlander season one, two, and the first three episodes of season three. Started this series, just wanted to be entertained, wanted to just kind of have an escape, a little, like a book will take you away. I wanted a TV show to take me away. And I have really grown to like this show. So I am picking up from part two of my reaction to this show that I just wasn't, just came out of left field for me and has really been quite a touching piece of art. So now we are in at the end, or we're in season two, and Jamie and Claire are going to go back to Scotland. Um, Life has just taken a turn for the worse there in France. They've lost Raymond. Fergus has been hurt. Jamie's been arrested and is now free, but I mean, he has, like, I guess, a stain against him, and they are heading back to Scotland, and basically the rebellion is for the Jacobites and returning Bonnie Prince Charles and his father to the throne of Scotland and England. It seems to be moving ahead, and they are going to go back home with Murtagh in tow. Murtagh is the character, he is the godfather of Jamie, and basically like his protector, or his rescuer. So he's always looking out for him, and they all head back to Scotland. And when they get there, they return to Jamie's ancestral home, Lallybroch, and there is his sister and brother-in-law. His sister is Jenny. She is amazing. She is just what you would expect in a warm, loving, just by your side, tough sister. And she is that for Jamie. She's always in his corner, and she loves him, and she treats him like the little brother that he is. So they go back home, and they are that the Battle of Culloden, which is going to be devastating for the Highland culture, that they can perhaps stop it from happening and stop basically the loss of so many lives of these people that they're around, um, their their extended family, and they call them CLAN, different from the United States clan, um, we think, and then they to assist with making a battle plan that basically will avoid Culloden, avoid them going to that moor and being in a position to basically fulfill the history that Claire knows, because she lived in 1945. She's overhearing that this battle was, it was not successful for the Highlanders, that they're essentially going to be nearly wiped out. So she's hearing this, and um, hearing, I should say, what her husband is discussing about this time period. And so she's able to give Jamie the playbook about what's going to happen. Um, so as they're moving toward the battle, it's just they are they're starting to lose people that are close to them. The rifts between the clans, CLAN, is becoming apparent, because there are some who are like, we're not going to fight, we're not going to rebel and bring the wrath of the British army on ourselves. And then you have other clans that are wanting to participate, they want to restore, they believe that Bonnie Prince Charlie and his father should be on the throne. So they are fighting, and they're out to do it. They are having to teach men who are basically like just farmers, just working men, laborers, how to fight. So they're trying to build their army and they're moving, and you know, Claire's remembering things that Frank told her from 1945, and she's like, "You're gonna have a Highlanders were successful at the Battle of Prestonpans," and Claire is talking to Jamie, letting him know, "Yes, this is what this is what Frank said." Her husband in 1945, he said Prestonpans Highlanders were going to win, and they're looking at it like, if they won this is what history foretold. Well, this is what I would know from her 1945 life. That's what she knows. She's like, well, then it's also true that you are going to lose, that the clans of the Highlanders are going to lose at the Battle of Culloden. And so Jamie and her, they're still trying to find a way to get the Highlanders out of this, to just come at the battle anyway, but at Culloden, because if they fight anywhere else, they have a chance. They're not just going to be fulfilling history, but it's just like misstep after misstep is pushing them toward Culloden. Um, and then there's also a side story, because as they're preparing, Claire is a war nurse, and she's preparing to treat the men as they're coming in from the battlefield. So she's gone into town and she runs into um, this woman named Mary, and Mary is actually the ancestor of her husband, Frank Randall. And she is at this point married the brother, and she's pregnant by the brother of Jonathan Randall. But Jonathan Randall's brother is deathly ill, and he asked his brother Jonathan to marry Mary so that she would have protection in this life. He's like, I can't give her protection. Even if I die, she won't get anything. So he asked Jonathan to marry him, and Jonathan, being the jerkwad that he is, he goes off and tries to get drunk, and well, he's working on getting drunk. And Claire goes to talk to him because, as much as she despises him, from her understanding, he is Frank's ancestor, and it's like he has to marry Mary in order for Frank to exist. So she's gone to him to appeal to him to listen to his brother and marry her, because she's saying, you're going to die at the Battle of Culloden, based on her understanding of the future. She doesn't tell Jonathan Randall how she knows the date of his death, but she tells him, she's already told him that he's going to die on that day. And if you die, then Mary, your brother's wife, will be taken care of, and the child will hold the family name. And so, in the course of talking, he tells her how he's like, did Jamie tell you how I, abused him in prison? And she says yes, and she's very offended and gets up from the table because it was horrendous. And then he's like, I would do it all over again. And it's just like, oh, he's such a bad guy. And like I said, this is really fantastic acting, because this awful, awful human being also plays her husband, Frank Randall. And Frank is just, you have so much compassion. And in one series, for one guy to play two different characters, and you have loathing for one of them and absolute respect for the other one. I mean, that's impressive. So basically, he agrees to do it. They watch and make sure that he gets married to her, and then his younger brother, dies. So now the child that is being carried is actually is Jonathan's brother's child. I think the brother's name Alex is Alex's child, and Mary is going to just use Jonathan's name to be, to make sure that the child is welcomed into society and has a future in, the 1700s. So Claire goes back to the staging ground where they're getting ready to move toward the war. Column shows up, and he's giving over authority over our guardianship of his son, because he's ready to leave the earth. He has a debilitating illness and he's ready to go. And Dougal is upset because he didn't choose him, and he told him, I don't want our CLAN involved in this war. Column is not speaking from like a futuristic point. He's just looking pragmatically that if you get involved in this rebellion, when it's done, the reprisals are going to be so severe, they're really going to hurt us. And he just wouldn't put the people under his protection in that battle. And Dougal could not promise not to, because he was a true Jacobite. He believed in the cause, and he would use everything at his disposal for them to win. So Colin passes away. Dougal is upset and goes out and doing whatever he's doing. And while he's away, Jamie and Claire are just kind of like, they're realizing that this is going to happen. This battle at Culloden is coming. They can't get out of it. And so Claire is telling Jamie, "Well, we have another way." Then she said, "Like, let's go in the house." It's like this really big manor that they've taken over. They basically seized as the military, with Bonnie Prince Charles, and she recommends that she's an herbalist. She's like, "Well, I can poison the prince, and that way this battle wouldn't happen, because they're not going to follow anybody else. He is the reason that they're fighting." And Dougal overhears this, and he is, just upset. I mean, he's lost his brother. He's a hothead anyway, and now you're talking about killing the man that, his hopes and dreams for the future of his country. All of his patriotism is in this one man, and in restoring them to the throne. And he's just like, cannot abide, and is trying to really get at Claire. And of course, Jamie's her husband. He gets between them. My understanding, he's trying to get at Claire, but Jamie is like, well, he attacks Jamie because he says, I don't want like to bring shame on your mother, because Dougal is Jamie's mother's brother. So Dougal's his uncle. But they get to fighting, and it's with swords, and um it's death. I mean, that's what they're going for. They're not fighting to fight. They are fighting to the end of life. And eventually it comes down to, um Jamie is almost going to lose this battle, and Claire steps in and helps him. And Rupert, who is a fellow, him and Angus have been with them kind of off and on throughout it. He's a member of the, I'm gonna say team, because I just, that word CLAN is just kind of, it's a lot. So he's a member of the Mackenzie family, and or the Mackenzie tribe. I'm calling them tribes, Mackenzie tribe, and he oversees them doing this to Dougal. And Jamie asked him, he said, "Give me 2 hours. And before you tell anybody, just give me 2 hours. I promise I will come back and face my punishment, because this is a big deal what you've done. You hurt the leader of this tribe." So Rupert agrees. I mean, they've been good friends, been together since, since childhood and such. So Rupert agrees to that. He's going to do that. And then Jamie writes up, this note to his sister to make sure that the property stays with their family. He's starting to give instructions, because he's like, "This is bad. I am either going to face justice for what I've done to my uncle, or I'm going to die on this battlefield, because this battle is about to happen." And he's like, "I got 2 hours. I get to get Claire to these stones, because I need to get her out of here." And he goes and he gets a horse, and he's like, "Claire, come on, you got to leave." And she's like, "I don't want to leave you." And he's telling her, "Listen, I know you're pregnant. You have got to go. You have got to go back to Frank. somebody who's going to care for you, care for the child, because on in my time in this 1700s right now, this battle is about to happen, or the Mackenzie tribe is going to get me for what I've done. This is the end for me, and I need you and the child to be safe. And so he takes her back to the stones, and they just have this really moving scene, where she's telling him she's not ready to go, and she's like, I love you, and he's like pushing her, and like not pushing her, but he's like holding her and moving her toward the stones, because he's like, I have got to get you out of here, and I've got to keep my word. I have to go back, and face, what is, for what he thought was going to be the last of his days. But I want to get you all to safety, from what you said. So he's like, I got to get you to these stones, Claire. You have got to go. And she does. She goes, and she lands back in her time, and she's just, just wailing, basically, because she's had to leave this man. She doesn't know what's going to happen to him. He's getting ready to, I mean, he's injured. He's walking into a bad situation all around, because he's done a crime. He's there's a war has started, and I mean they've just parted, and it was just really poignant, parting, and they just tried to just remember everything. You could just, like, in their eyes, they're just trying to remember the face, the smell, everything about each other, because they know this is it. They're going to be separated. And so she lands back in her time, and she runs into this man on the street, and she's asking him, well, what happened at the Battle of Culloden? Who won? Because she doesn't know if they might have changed the story. And he tells her that, that he lost, that the Highlanders lost at Culloden, and she's just devastated. So she's now back in like 1948, maybe, because it's about 3 years later. So she's back in that time, and Frank comes to the hospital. So they took her to the hospital because they're like, this random woman just showed up on the street in these 1700 clothes and talk. I don't know what she's doing. And so Frank comes back up to the area where it was, near like Inverness in Scotland. So he comes back up to see about her and retrieve her. And she's looking for all this information, trying to figure out what happened with Jamie, trying to read all the history, and she can't find it. And finally, she tells Frank the story, and he's like, um Frank's like, just, he's a professor, and he listens to it, and it seems to me that he accepts that she had been with another man for those 3 years, but he wasn't able to. He didn't really believe that it was she had really gone back to the 1700s at that point. So maybe they're going to show us more clips of their life together, because he wrote to the minister, where where like they had gone to do some research in Scotland in 1945. He had written to the minister about not wanting to know anything more about Jonathan Wolverton Randall. He said in his letter that he wasn't the man that he thought he was. So I'm thinking Claire must have told him throughout their marriage more about their life, more about what Randall was like. But we don't see that in the story at this point. So I don't know, but he did stop his kind of admiration, or just fawning over this ancestor of his that fought at the Battle of Culloden. So basically, she has to tell him, I'm pregnant, and he says, he has his moment. He has to deal with it. He's very hurt. And then he comes back, and he says, I want to raise the child, and he, gives her the conditions. You got to let that life go. I'm not going to be second to another man, but we can raise this child as our daughter, and I will do that. And she accepts. They move to the United States, and to Boston, so that he can take a job at Harvard. So their marriage, um, through the story of coming back to minister's house where Claire had basically disappeared from while Frank was doing his research, and then where she, they came back to in the 1948 time and made the decision with the council, and Frank made the decision with the council of the minister to stay with his wife and to raise the child as his own. And so at this point, it's a flashback, and it's Claire's daughter with Jamie biologically, but she had been raised by Frank. She's asking questions, and she ends up having her mother reveal to her that her father was Jamie, a 1743 Highlander, and the daughter doesn't believe it. But there's a scene where they go back to the stones, and another person goes through the stones, and then the daughter is like, "Oh my goodness, this is real. You really can go through stones." And then in the course of that ending scene for season two, the the adopted son of the minister, tells her that Jamie's name did not show up in the record of the officers who were taken away at the Battle of Culloden. So she's looking back at the stones like, well, he's alive. He made it through the Battle of Culloden, and she does want to go back to him, but she's really not sure how to do it. I mean, the person who she just seen go through the stones did some pretty nefarious things. So she didn't want to do it that way, because she's like, I didn't have to do that the first time. I didn't have to do anything horrible like that. So we're moving now. That's the end of season two. She's aware that it's possible that Jamie survived the Battle of Culloden, and she's thinking it maybe I can go back. I can go back and find Jamie. Um, And so now, and when she's done this, Frank has been dead for about 2 years, I think, a year or two. So at this point, she's fulfilled like her arrangement with Frank. Her daughter is a, older than 18 or at 18 or older than 18 years old, and she can now get a better understanding of what might have happened to Jamie and if he might be alive. And so now we move into season three, and it is showing actually the time when Claire and Frank are in Boston in the early days of their reunion. And it's heartbreaking because Frank Randall is, I mean, he is, I mean, if you are ever in that predicament, he would be the husband you want. It's kind of like he's like a Joseph, like in the Bible where you have Mary and Joseph, and Mary's like, "Yeah, the Holy Spirit got me pregnant," and Joseph is, he takes on the role and faces the ire of his community to say, God has confirmed it to me too. This is the child of God, and I'm going to be with my wife, and that's pretty much how Frank is. And Claire just does not adjust well to being back in the 1900s. She's devastated by all that's happened, losing Jamie. She doesn't like the restrictions that are on her. She doesn't feel part of anything anymore. Basically, in the U.S., it was a time of transition for women, and they weren't quite accepted in the professions, and she had all this knowledge and experience, and men were acting as if she was just a little lady and she should go bake cakes. And she just was having a rough go of it at first, and she just was not able to completely open back up to Frank. And he did, I mean, everything under the sun to make her comfortable, to let her reassure her that he was there for her. But it just, from the part that we've seen, like I said, I'm only 3 episodes in. She just really could not come back. She could not return to her marriage fully, and not that it was all because of Jamie, because they had been married before in the 1940s, but then they were separated by the war, so they hadn't had a lot of time around each other. So there, when they went to that area of Scotland, it was for them to kind of rekindle their romance. So they'd already had like this disruption of their marriage, and then she's, goes to the 1700s and meets this man who is like the love of her life, and she just comes back and she just is not able. She's just not really receptive to him. She's more fantasizing about Jamie. It's just it's painful to watch. I will say that it's painful to watch, and I really hate that Frank went through that because he really didn't deserve it. He just, yeah, but he wanted his child, and he stayed around so that they could raise their child and not have her life disrupted. And so um, parallel to this, Jamie, it did make it. He did live. He has some flashbacks, and it does show that he was able to exact his vengeance on Jonathan Randall at the Battle of Culloden. So he had his vengeance. He took him out, and he was rescued by Rupert. He came back and got him. He was severely injured. They were hiding from the British in like a church, but they were discovered, and the British soldiers basically said, "You all are traitors to the king, and our orders is to get rid of all of you who are traitors." And they were doing that one by one. And Jamie's getting ready for end of life, and he says his name so that it can be recorded who the traitors were, and that they were, dealt with in the way that the king prescribed. And in saying it, the commander there was like, "What is your name?" And he tells him again. And so it turns out that the commander's little brother had been spared by Jamie. So at one time he had saved his little brother's life, and in honor of, to uphold the honor of his family, the commander was like, "I will not kill him, but what I'll do is I'll have him carted off, like have a cart come get him, horse and cart come get him." And because he was so injured, he didn't even expect him to live, but he's like, "I'll let him go because he saved my brother's life, spared my brother, and my brother promised him that, he would do XYZ. And so I'm going to fulfill that on behalf of my family." And so he did. I'm on this session. So I do want to thank you for listening to The Lighthouse. I'll see you in the next one. And we'll continue with season 3, first 3 episodes of the Outlander series in the next post. Thank you so much for listening. You have a good day. Bye bye.